importance of having support for the industry and digital capital at the very top of the political structure. Now, equally important, if we look at the cabinet that's been put in place on the next slide, you see the entire government is now embraced Bitcoin. And when I say embrace Bitcoin, what I mean is 18 months ago, there was one person in the government that had an awareness of it and was skeptical to neutral or grudgingly accepting of it. And everyone else in government was either negatively inclined or they were ignorant of it. And now there are 12 individuals I'd want to highlight here. J.D. Vance, the vice president, Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, Paul Atkins, the head of the SEC. Number 4, Kevin Warsh, who is the Fed chair nominee, who understands digital assets, understands the use case of Bitcoin. This is a tremendous move forward for us, a big fundamental shift that now you can look at the head of the SEC, the head of the Treasury, and the head of the Fed as all appreciating the pivotal role of digital assets and the growth of the country and the economy. And if you go to the second line, right, you see the head of intelligence, the head of the Small Business Administration, the head of federal housing, the head of health and human services, all Bitcoin believers. And then Michael Selig, the CFTC chairman, David Sachs, who's doing a wonderful job, Howard Lutnick, Commerce Secretary, and even Kash Patel. So if you consider that, we went from one neutral to a Bitcoin president and 12 positive constructive. This is great fundamentals for us. And I don't think we can lose sight of this because everything that follows in the marketplace is very much influenced by the political structure of the world. On the next slide. Capitol Hill has embraced Bitcoin. We've got bipartisan consensus that the United States should embrace digital assets, should embrace digital capital, should be a leader. That is not a debate. No one's saying that there's one party in favor of digital capital, another party against it. That's a big deal. So although the political process is complicated, the fact that we have moved from an asset which was a scary speculative thing and maybe illegitimate to a legitimate asset that most reasoned politicians and regulators and policymakers believe they need to move constructively forward with. Let's go to the next slide. Big banks are embracing Bitcoin. Roll the clock back 18 months, and this Harvey Ball diagram is pretty much blank, mostly blank. And so when you actually look at the top financial institutions and you ask the question, do they allow IBIT trading? Well, there's an avalanche of support there. That's flipped in 12 months. The second question is, do they offer credit against IBIT? That's a big deal. 12 months ago was almost impossible to get a loan or a margin loan against IBIT. Now there are many banks coming into space. Would they let you trade BTC? Now you have banks that are announcing support for that. You have banks announcing support to custody BTC, and you have banks announcing intent to offer credit against BTC. Again, this is an extraordinary sea change. We cannot underestimate the value. I think that the fundamentals of the industry are driven by the banks creating credit. One bank can create as much credit as all the Bitcoin miners can create in Bitcoin in a year. So each bank that turns on Bitcoin-backed credit lines might be the equivalent of another halving for the network. Let's go to the next slide. TradFi and FinTech have embraced Bitcoin. If you look at the number of accounts with BTC trading asset, there's a pretty clear bullish trend here, both across crypto native exchanges, fintechs and neobanks, and the brokerages and banks and the wealth management channel. Those are large numbers. Fundamentally, we're going from an asset class that no one could buy if they wanted to an asset class where everyone is competing to facilitate access and exposure. The next slide. This is the ETF trend. ETFs are embracing Bitcoin. 125 ETFs or ETPs launched. 1.4 million Bitcoin held in them. A very consistent trend up and to the right. Next. And this is the corporate trend. It was nothing in 2019. We were the first serious player. We were lonely for a bit, then we went to 33, then we were 64 in 2024, and now we're 194. This is clearly explosive growth, and there's a signal here. Next. The public markets are embracing Bitcoin. Look at these IPOs that have taken place this year: Bullish, Circle, Gemini, BitGo, Kraken, that's coming. And then Coinbase, Block, and Robinhood have all been included in the S&P 500. So I see this as a very bullish indicator and a fundamental improvement in the structure of the industry. The concern du jour is quantum computers, and many people ask, do quantum computers represent a threat to Bitcoin? I would note that the quantum computing concern and quantum FUD is just the latest in a long litany and a parade of horrible FUD that has been taking place since the beginning of Bitcoin. There was functionality FUD. Bitcoin's not functional enough, so it will fail. It needs smart contracts. And then people thought it was a Ponzi, and then they thought it was too volatile, and then they thought, well, there was a bug in it, and maybe it'll be 51% attacked. Maybe the Chinese control too much of it, and then there was the Chinese shut it down. It was the opposite of the China FUD. It was the China non embrace. And then we had all manner of block size wars and bandwidth FUD, and then there was a uses electricity FUD, and then there was the wealth concentration FUD, and of course then there was another crypto will be better. What I would say is whenever dealing with each of these concerns, we have to take them seriously. We have to consider them, but we have to remember two things. One, the two words on the back of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy: don't panic. Most important two words, more important than everything in the encyclopedia or the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The second observation, the Hippocratic Oath: do no harm. And so whenever you're faced with a challenge in any system or any network, you have to make sure you don't panic. You're not railroaded into doing something foolish or destructive. And you also can't do something that causes harm. You don't want an iatrogenic intervention where the cure is worse than the disease. So our position on quantum computing: one, we think it's probably 10 or more years away before there's a threat. That is the consensus. It's a promising technology, but it's still nascent. Many industries, including finance and defense, are dependent upon traditional cryptography. They face the same risks. There's a significant global investment going into building quantum-resistant protocols, not just in the Bitcoin community, across all communities. The Bitcoin community in specific is engaged on research and development in these efforts. There's good work that's taking place. If Bitcoin requires an upgrade, there will be global consensus. Right now, there isn't global consensus that existing cryptographic libraries are at risk. And to stampede into a hypothetical fix before there is consensus would introduce new attack surfaces and new complexity and new failure modes that don't currently exist. It's very similar to over vaccinating, and it's like, well, there's a 0.001% chance that the kid might get a disease. So we're going to vaccinate them just in case. But of course, 3% of the people that get the vaccine have side effects, right? And so it's very important that we don't over-insure, over-vaccinate, over-treat, over-worry. It's a famous president of the United States. He said, if you see 10 problems driving down the road, 9 of them will probably drive themselves into a ditch before they get to you. So the one thing you can't do is you can't buy 100 expensive insurance policies that cost collectively 100% of all your operating income to insure against something which is 2% likely to happen. That's why you have to be very thoughtful about addressing these risks, and you have to address them at the right time, not too soon, not too late, but because too soon, you probably don't have the right technology and you're over-insuring. Too late, right? You accept the risk that you shouldn't. That's why consensus is very important. Bitcoin will be stronger if and when that quantum upgrade takes place, right? And so Bitcoin is upgradable, and Bitcoin can be upgraded to be stronger. And we, of course, are optimists, and we believe that the human race will accept challenges and will upgrade to meet those challenges and do it in a rational fashion. And Bitcoin has a history of meeting challenges in a rational fashion such that it is stronger. And you can see all those examples. Last, but probably most important on this slide, strategy, we are going to initiate a Bitcoin security program that coordinates with the global cybersecurity community, the global crypto security community, and the global Bitcoin security committee in order to help and contribute to consensus and solutions to address the quantum computing threat, as well as any other emergent security threats that evolve. We think it's reasonable and appropriate for us to do this, given our large responsibility as a Bitcoin holder, but we want to do it in a very responsible fashion. And we want to make sure that we coordinate with the global cyber, crypto, and Bitcoin security community, because there are a lot of very, very brilliant minds here. There's a lot of good work being done, and it's likely that consensus will form and solutions will form at the right time in a responsible fashion. So that's our view on quantum. Next slide.